Hello, everybody, and this is Monday Nights Get Nuked. We're the Bloodthirsty Puppets. I am thirsty, and tonight shall be rotten near Ooze Town, because unfortunately the lovely Spanners is a little ill tonight, so we shall be running another prequel game. This prequel game, unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to organise a guest, so we shall just be running with Lilith and Ivor as Zeke and Anita make their way to Ooze Town. So, a few rules for chat. Don't be a tool about someone's race. Don't be a tool about someone's gender. Don't be a tool, screwdriver, jackhammer, or crowbar. Just don't. It's not worth it. And frankly, I don't think you've got the legs for it. So, right. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we find our glorious people somewhere on a road between Lewis and Ooze Town, assumedly. I've got the map up here, and the exact area they're in is labelled The Spill, because it is an area where basically there are continuous ruins between Blighttown and the hills near Ooze Town. There's a little break and then it comes to Ooze Town. But the spill goes on for a few miles. If I remember correctly, about 8 miles. Because it's a real place. I actually drove through it just yesterday. But hey, so now that we've done that, because I've neglected the order of things, who are you people? And what will you be playing?
I'm Ivor, and I'll be playing Zeke. Still on the ever-present quest to track down Herbert, the Scuzzle, my missing family member, to be reunited with him once more.
Excellent. And what about you, the other one?
The other one is Jill, and I am playing Anita. And I am just randomly wandering and selling drugs. It's cheap.
Delicious drugs. So, yeah. So, we all, well, several of us, including Jazzrat in the chat. Hey, Jazz. Will remember that Zeke had a unceremonious entry to Lewis, and ended up going to the pub with his new companions, who he ended up losing after a few nights of jolly drinking, along with most of his money. Unfortunately, at the end of a long day of recuperating, he seems to have discovered he doesn't have enough money for to spend the night anywhere. So, in the early afternoon, he after a quick bit of lunch off of someone's plate before it got tidied away, he's set off to the south from Lewis. So, you're wandering down as a certain E3 showcase has continually repeated to us, country road.
Whilst being surprised that there are still country roads, I'm still not 100% convinced that this place is Radger free. And we'll be keeping an eye out for Radgers as I head down the road.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you're heading to the road, down the road south from Lewis, and as you do so, you pass over a bridge, and it's kind of odd, this bridge, because the way that it's sort of constructed, the land around it, you don't realise until you're on it. There's verges on either side, and there's a bit of sort of scrubby vegetation, and until you're about halfway across, You've made it a fair distance across this bridge. And suddenly you notice on either side there's a fucking deep drop to a old road. A much bigger road, in fact. If you had to count, which you can't generally. Well, I'm not going to make too many assumptions. Can you count? Can Zeke count? He can't read.
He can count enough to sort of get by and not be ripped off.
So he can count to sort of hands and toes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. After a quick bit of mental maths that takes you the rest of the time crossing that bridge, you think that you're counting the lines on the road. There's little bits and pieces where the lines are still intact. The road surface is cracked to hell. It looks like there might have been even 6 lanes of traffic. That's a fucking big road. The road you're walking on, 2 cars probably could have passed. But hey, old world technology. That's pretty cool. Also, the bridge you walked across didn't fall. It survived a nuclear apocalypse and stood for an extra 100 years.
Definitely wasn't built by any British council then.
You'd be surprised. But yeah, you and as per the recent inclement weather, over the past sort of a few days, as you weathered the Razor Storm in Lewis, the banks down to this old road are absolutely absolutely bloody soaked. There's actually a sort of a shallow river running. I think it's eastward, running east, yeah. Running east, and they're actually joining the main flow of the Ooze River further down. They're cascading over the sides of another bridge that crosses the Ooze. A rather lovely waterfall, but you wouldn't want to be anywhere near it. God knows what's coming along with that shit. It might actually be better to tap dance in a paddling pool full of knives. So yeah, you're wandering across this bridge, and you come to the typical country road. It twists, it turns, it goes around properties that no one wanted to sell up or move. So you end up walking sort of 4 times as far, until you come to there's a T-junction. You can actually head straight across, but the junction is coming into the side of you, and at this junction is an old white sign, as you see, as many people have seen on country roads for at this point hundreds of years. And underneath this sign, looking up with a quizzical expression on her face, is a rotter. Nilf. So, you are standing at this junction, looking up at this sign, and for the life of you, you're not sure what it says. I mean, you are most definitely not illiterate, but whoever wrote this sign might have been. There are an array of letters. They don't appear to go together. Some of them actually look like numbers. They might be written upside down. You're not sure. After a good long look, you're reasonably sure that it doesn't indicate danger. And and you have previously made this walk down from Lewis, and you've been standing at this sign for a while trying to work out what the fuck is going on with it. Because for the life of you, you can't recall which way to turn. Whether to go straight ahead or turn here. So, right. You bump into each other, I assume. I think we've established in canon that you have met before, haven't we?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, you met. You probably would have met over a week ago, because you met at Pete's over a pint. Before a certain fellow of your acquaintance robbed a man of a giant pig or something. But yes, you. At which point you all parted ways rather than being associated with a pig thief. who murdered a family. Who I won't confirm or deny was Spanners in her first outing as Timmy. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, you bump into each other. Go ahead.
Hi.
You alright? Which
Yeah.
way?
I'm trying to get to Ooze Town, but I cannot make head nor tail of that sign, and I've kind of forgotten which way to go.
Well, Ooze Town's just down the way a bit, isn't it? By
Well,
down
yeah,
the
I
way,
think so.
he definitely means several miles. He'll look up at the sign and give some indication that he's possibly reading it.
Okay. You look at the sign and give me a knowledge check.
Is that plus intelligence?
Yeah.
Plus knowledge is 10.
10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To your eye, as you stand here and look at this looks like someone's taken down the old road sign and put on some trackers marks on it, and they're indicating that, and the symbols upon it indicate that there's water and people this way. It's not
Okay.
words, and it's not numbers. It is, in fact, the small the numbers and letters that they hammer onto these signs, taken off and repurposed.
So sort of like the hobo signs of America that say "friendly to the homeless" here.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Okay.
You know, it indicates that there's things to drink and friendly people.
Okay. Well, I was heading down that way anyway. I've heard that there might be someone worth visiting down there to carry on, try to find Herbert. I'll go with you a while if you want.
Yeah, sure. That's fine. So you still not found further then?
No, back in Lewis, I got some info that you might be down in Ooze Town, but he could be. We live in hope, don't we, Jerry? Jerry's just sat on one shoulder.
That reminds me, actually, the other day while I was at work, I saw a squirrel sitting on a roof going absolutely mental at nothing. I thought of Jerry. Anyway, back in the game. So, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
I know Lewis well. We've got a very nice brewery there. Did you try and use the beer at all?
Yeah, can't say I was a fan, but someone else was paying, so not too bad.
Anita's not sure about Zeke anymore. If he doesn't like the beer.
Anita will remember that. Anita, a rotter who has essentially lost most of her taste buds, still enjoys drinking this stuff. And you're like, nah, it's alright. Wasn't keen. Heresy. But yeah. So yeah, So having deciphered this sign and said, let's go together, which way do you go? Do you go to the right where this sign is pointing, or south?
I will follow the sign.
Okay, you follow the sign.
I'll follow it.
Okay. So you follow the sign. The road gets narrower, but better kept. I mean, obviously the surface is the old road surface is broken to hell, but someone's clearly gone to some effort to sort of stamp down the gravel of the old sort of tarmac and concrete, to make sure it stays a usable path. But only after you've passed the junction and gone round the first corner does this really become apparent.
Okay.
This road, as you come away from the junction, it slowly sort of tapers off to the left, and as you move sort of out of sort of eye line with the junction, the road abruptly becomes much nicer.
Same sort of deal as there was on the way into Lewis then.
Probably a bit nicer than that. On the way into Lewis, it was clear that someone had basically like laid new cement like over the broken old shitty surface. So it was still crumbling. It was just flat and crumbling. You know, the much stronger materials underneath weren't taking the weight very well, because they were fractured. But anyway, yeah. So as you wander down this sort of gravel road, you notice that there are houses either side. Most of them obviously ruined. Some of them burned. But yeah, either side of this narrow road, set back a fair way. At some point there was probably a fence or a hedge, but mostly now there's just sort of scrub and wreckage. Sort of old cars that have been pulled off the road, things like that, and dross, just general living dross. Clearly people have been through here recently. Probably quite a few. And as there's no like noticeable prints on the mud either side of the road, but there are old houses that clearly have been sort of scavenged for building materials. And as you head along, you come across a speed bump, which, considering the rest of the road is completely destroyed, is a little odd. But apparently these speed bumps were made of, sterner stuff. It's a little speed bump, one of those horrible little traffic calming measures with a bollard on it. So you sort of go, alright, fair enough. Step over it. But yeah, you head on a little further, and the road abruptly sort of turns back off to the right. But there is a tiny little lane heading off to the left. And next to it is a sign. And it's a very small sign. And as you draw closer... Yeah. I need to give me a perception. A perception check.
Perception. Yeah, that's a 6.
So what?
6.
6.
6.
Yeah. Yeah, fuck it. You easily recognise this. I mean, you barely, you sort of, you squint a bit and you get a good deal closer while you're still trying to recognise it. This is a road sign. This is an old road sign, an original road sign. In fact, this may be the road sign that the local council put in over 100 years ago. It's one of those sort of concrete uprights with a concrete crossbeam with a metal plate screwed onto it. And it just reads, "The Street."
Okay. So
And,
yeah.
on the left of the street, it's a row of fairly intact houses. Small houses, to be sure, but intact, fairly. And on the right, there's a sort of plain of cracked cement and concrete. It's pretty much the same thing. I mean tarmac, but hey. With a few sort of odd lines painted on it, you don't really... they don't line up anymore. It's just a few of them have lines that are sort of painted on them. And next to it is a building that quite clearly is a pub. And outside it is a sign that's hanging, just say it reads, "Jug." Now, through there are windows at this place that haven't been boarded up. They haven't got any glass. No bourgeois decadence here. But, maybe there's one pane of glass somewhere. But most of it's just open. There are shutters. And inside you can see there must be easily 10, 15 people just sitting at the bar having a drink. There's clearly a fire going. There's a bit of smoke sort of drifting out of the chimney that you didn't notice before. You were a bit further away. There are a few trees here even. It was obscured. But yeah, there is a row of houses and a pub with people in.
Anita makes a beeline for the pub.
Okay. And he makes a beeline for the pub. My old employers at that pub would be very happy to hear that. And what about Zeke? What does Zeke do upon, you've probably left Lewis with a hangover. Or at least you had a hangover that morning. I'm not sure if you still have one.
Yeah, I'd probably be thinking it's time to get rid of this hangover by continuing to drink.
That calibre of man. Fair enough. So yes, you both head on into the pub, or Jug, as it's known. Yeah. As you're walking in, you notice that the sign Jug. At one point, it clearly had other words on it. It's rusted away, like from the edges. There is clearly a picture of a jug, but the bottom is sort of rusted in, and the top's a bit rusty. Part of the handle's gone. There are clearly some wheat sheaths or something behind it at one point, because you can find them on the floor. There are other words, but they're not legible anymore. Someone's clearly just wiped this one bit clean. Yeah, this place has been reclaimed, as opposed to preserved. Yeah, you're strolling up to the door. It's a rather nice door. Someone has clearly dug this out from somewhere. It's a big wooden door with metal studs in it. There's a gap where probably there was a piece of glass at one point, and at the moment all you can see through it is a little square of metal, and you can see the bolts that secure it in, sticking through the door. For someone who didn't bother repairing their windows, the door's a bit serious.
I'm gonna try and open that door.
Okay. Yeah, the door's got like a big ring handle on it. And as you seize it with one hand and you do the classic, you pull. Nothing happens. So you push and nothing happens. It's a little annoying. Zeke's standing behind you like, come on. At this point you notice there is a bell.
Oh, I ring the bell.
There's a little bell. A real little sort of cast iron black bell hanging next to the door.
She's going to try and ring that bell.
Excellent. You ring that bell with glorious, a glorious merry little tingling sound, and you hear some groaning from inside. And a little argument about who has to go and open the door. In the end, you deduce that it's Reg's turn, and as you stand there, the little metal square slides to one side, and a pair of incredibly bloodshot eyes sort of barely reach the bottom edge of it. And what you can see above it is sort of a greying mass of receding hair. And you just hear, "What?"
Hey Reg, can we get in? Do with a drink.
Got money?
Of course. Well, that.
Show it me.
She reaches into the bag and sews it up. Put it back in the bag.
Okay. Open the bloody door, Clive. At which point you see this fellow hop down off something and wander off. You just see the top of the hair move away from the door, and you see it hasn't bothered to close this slit, and you just see a shoulder and a bicep, and the door is pulled entire out of the door frame from inside, and just carried off to one side and put down. At which point you're met with what presumably is Clive. Now both of you are familiar with post-gens. Clive doesn't appear to be one. He is just a very, very large person. Disproportionately large, in fact. On one side, his left arm appears to be almost as large as the rest of him. It's not a good look. It's clearly not one that he deals with very well. He's got sort of growths and all kinds of uncomfortable looking things on that left arm. The rest of him sort of just dangles off of this enormous appendage. And he sits down he pushes the door back into place as you come in, and he just slaps it closed. And he just pushes it back into the hole and just slaps it back in, like putting a cork back into a bottle. And he just sits there wheezing. It turns out that whatever else is going on with Clive, his biceps appear to be hogging the blood supply. The rest of him is this withered little lanky man with he's sort of looking a bit grey. His lips are blue. He's sweating profusely, and someone comes and hands him a beer.
As we get far enough past him to be sort of out of immediate earshot, I'll turn and, in a low whisper, sort of say to Anita, "Looks like a lonely chap, that, doesn't it?"
And Anita kind of just gives some look and yeah, possibly.
Oh God! I wonder who's going to deal with his loneliness. But yeah, you wander into this place, and immediately ahead of you, probably not less than sort of 6 feet from the door, is a bar, and it's a real old English bar. So even though it is inside and you're walking on big, thick wooden sort of floorboards, this bar is actually a stone built, a stone wall built inside to about sort of 4 feet, and then topped with a fucking enormous beam, possibly even just a slice of tree, from top to bottom. It looks fairly new. The tree, the tree slice, shall we call it? It's not entirely smooth. You do notice that at one end of the bar there's actually a little mug with like pieces of like rough paper in it. There's sandpaper and there's like a plane like rammed in here. Apparently people are still trying to smooth it off. But yeah, you see behind the bar there's a portly gentleman, and a similarly sort of a short portly lady, and they're standing, arm in arm sort of thing. One of them sort of one of them's holding a glass with his arm around the other, and she's cleaning the glass with her other arm around him. You're sort of thinking, that doesn't look very efficient. But still, they're very clearly in love and washing glasses, so the glass will be clean.
If one were to cast a glance down to the far end of the bar, would it be reasonable to assume we see Jim sat there as ever?
As you glance across the bar, actually, Jim is conspicuous by his absence. However, when you turn a little further, you realise that he's actually sitting by the window, next to the fire. And there's a young boy with a tray standing next to him, who, after a few seconds of inspection, yeah, you can kind of see a resemblance between the young boy and the two people behind the bar. And Jim. Fair enough. But yeah, you stroll in. Jim once again gives you a little nod, as he has as him, or possibly even a legion of men who look very similar to him, have in almost every bar you've ever visited. But yeah. So you're in a bar. Oh, you're in a pub. Fuck calling it a bar. Bar is a place in a pub. Unless you come from the wrong continent. In which case, yes, you walk into a pub. There are two portly, happy people who are very much in love standing behind the bar. I think we said there were 15 odd people in here. There are possibly half a dozen people to one side of you, sitting at a large table, having a drink and something to eat. Looks meaty. And slightly more than half a dozen people sitting on the opposite side, on the other side, including Jim and the boy. And they appear to just be having a chat. They stopped when you came in, but they were clearly having a good old chin wag, you know. There's sort of splashes of beer from people gesturing with beer mugs. Yeah, maybe they even were singing a song. But yeah, everything has dropped sort of deathly silence as strangers have walked in.
Also pat myself down and hope that I have like a single tack or so remaining. I sort of go up to the bar and order and look at the two of them and go, I'll have whatever's on tap.
Okay. Yeah. On tap? Where do you think you are? Lewis? You'll have what we give you, boy. And the man picks up the tankard that he was cleaning. I know I said glass earlier, but what's the likelihood there's going to be any glass left? And he dips his large sort of rough-hewn wooden tankard into a barrel, which is open, sitting behind the bar. And he just pulls it out, and it is full of something frothy and brown in colour. And he places it down in front of you and goes, "Is that mine?" Just gesturing at the tack you are holding.
Yeah, I'll hand it over and take the tankard from him.
Good. Yeah. It's good to find a place for the evening. You know, you shouldn't be going out with the weather like it's been. The woman he's still hugging with one hand just sort of nods. Terrible.
I can attest to that one, brother. And
I didn't know you had a brother. Shut up, Florence. We've got company.
And then I will head over to where Jim is sat. In my head, there's like an empty space, like an empty chair facing him.
Yeah, there's almost always a chair near Jim somewhere.
And just sort of pull me pew and go, "How's it going, Jim? It's been a while, eh?"
Yeah, it's been all right. You know, I've just been making the rounds of the family holdings. You know, I always like to stop by and sample the old air. So, what brings you here?
I'm on the way down to Ooze Town. Got a tip that who I'm looking for is down there.
Oh, Herbert.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. So, if you're going to Ooze Town, what are you doing sitting in the pub here?
So it's been a long walk from Lewis, and I thought it was time for a bit of refreshment. I just sort of lift the mug to him and sort of take a mouthful.
Young'uns. Long walk. My ass. But, yeah, he has a swig with you.
So,
Another one, boy. the boy goes, he hasn't finished. He clearly hasn't finished this one. But the boy is off for another. As the boy actually passes closer to you, you realise that the boy definitely has Jim's eyes. And there's a certain resemblance around the jawline, but he's a little doughier than Jim.
so what's the news about town then?
Town. Right, I'll play along. Well, I think he looks around. I think the news about here is recently these two strangers walked into the pub. Nothing else has happened here in a long time. Pretty much, boom. Oh, there's a pub. You guys walk in. That's the timeline the last 100 years here.
Okay. And as you do in the pub, after you've had a brief conversation with someone you vaguely know, you just sort of slip into that awkward silence where you both don't walk off, but have a drink. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Yep, that's the one. And after a few minutes, after a few minutes, Jim lights his pipe, and it emits a cloud of the thickest, vilest smelling smoke you've ever been privy to. After a few seconds, it starts to sting your throat, nose, eyes, and soul. He continues smoking. You're not sure if he's aware that you're uncomfortable, but he definitely isn't too concerned. But anyway, back to Anita. You have walked in. I assume you've availed yourself of some manner of drink.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are you also going to go for the local barrel?
No. Anita's going to ask to see if they've got any of the good stuff hidden away.
Ah. The good stuff? Oh, do you mean this? And Florence leans slightly out of the hug and pulls something up from below from below the bar, and she's holding a bottle of something that's quite. I'm wishing there was a better word for clearly. There's something quite clear. It is a wonderful bottle of something that's clearly liquid and transparent. She's like, Mum always said there was nothing better than this. Do you want a nip, dear?
Just out of interest, what is it?
It's the good stuff.
Yeah, I'm aware it's the good stuff, just which good stuff?
Well, it's the one that Mum always said you should have.
Well, we can argue with Mum. No. Well,
That's
not.
right. And Florence turns away to grab you a glass. At which point you realise that you didn't notice this from before because she's a little bit pudgy. But she's wearing a collar, a thick black collar, and she has a line shaved up the back of her head, and the word slave has been tattooed on the back of her head. Along with what is quite clearly a rather large head wound that's been sort of clumsily dressed, or at least clumsily stitched at some point. But yeah, she seems quite happy. And she reaches off and she fetches you a tiny glass. A teeny tiny glass. And it's got a little stem on it. It's it's a hilariously small stemmed glass. For insulting someone with sherry, I assume. And she holds it sort of between with thumb and forefinger. And she fills it with a tiny bit of this liquid that she's calling the good stuff. And she goes, and at which point, the fellow whose name still hasn't come up in conversation, nudges her and goes like, "You better, Florence, you know the deal. If you're going to give them that, you've got to have some yourself and show them it's okay." She's like, "Oh, well, of course." And she knocks it back and then just hands you the bottle. Which is a little odd.
I think I will take the bottle.
Yeah. Now, it's a fairly large bottle. And it's pliable. Which is handy. I mean, Anita's old enough to remember plastics. Plastics are miraculous things. In fact, there have even been some rotters who have come to say that the evidence that humans didn't deserve to survive is that they were given something as fantastic as plastic and used it to make this kind of crap. They were given a material that essentially lasts forever and they use it to make disposable drinks bottles. Yet another sign that they didn't deserve to survive. Yeah, you get given a plastic drink bottle full of a clear liquid.
Anita will give the liquid a quick sniff and a taste. You're supposed to have it again now.
Okay, you say you've given it a sniff. Are you going to give it a sniff and see what you think and then maybe have a nip of it? Or are you just giving it a sniff and necking the damn thing?
She'll give it a sniff, see what she thinks.
Okay.
And then she'll make it.
Okay, you give it a sniff and it smells... is pretty much the best description. It doesn't smell pleasant. It has a sort of it has a warm, slightly bitter smell. It sort of stings the nose. It doesn't smell alcoholic. But at the same time, it doesn't smell entirely benign.
I'm just going to take a small sip.
Okay. You take a small sip. Give me an exposure poison. A resistance poison, that's the one. A lovely resistance endurance poison. 8. Okay. Yeah. Everything seems totally fine. In fact, it seems great. This stuff's great. These people are great. This place is great. And that woman, she's great. And the floor, it looks great. And it looks a lot closer now. And wow, when you look at things from laying on the floor, they look great. And we'll leave that for the as you slide to the floor with an idiot smile on your face. Just telling everyone in a slurred voice how great they are. So Zeke, you've had a slightly awkward conversation with Jim. You've discovered that he's checking out the family holdings, which will slot in quite nicely with things you learn later. As the cloud of smoke spreads and stings even the metaphysical parts of you, what are you going to do?
Um, as this acrid smoke sort of fills my inner core being with pain and discomfort, I'll do the polite thing and sort of down what is left in this tankard, and sort of give the good to see you again, Jim nod and look for Anita.
Okay. Yeah, you you finish your drink, and the boy has now come back with Jim's drink, which is quite clearly not what you're drinking. And it appears to be in a rather nice mug. A very big mug. It might have been etched with something at some point, but it's so scratched you couldn't tell. It's just a nice big. It might even be made of perspex or something to have stood up for this. It could be glass. Who knows? But it's a good big, translucent mug, and it gets put next to Jim, and they come and take your glass. The boy takes your glass and goes off into the back room, which is actually just to the right of the bar. He shoots through there, and you hear a splash as he, I presume, out of sight of the customers, stops being so well behaved and just throws it into the sink or something. But yeah, as you stand up and look around, you see the rather dowdy people. It looks like more than half of them are men, and almost all of them are quite old. But most of them look a bit worn down. A few of them are deformed, similar to Clive. But not necessarily to the same sort of extent. But yeah, you notice that a few of them have these collars as well, and quite a lot of them have thin hair at the back. But yeah, you get up and you start to wander across the room, and give me a perception.
9 plus 3. 12.
Yeah, you notice there's an area it's probably only sort of 5-6 feet away from you. This isn't a very big room. There's an area where the men at the bar aren't standing. Most of these men, they were sitting at either end of the room when you came in. You've proved yourself, fairly non-hostile, and they've reconvened at the bar. There are easily 10 men standing in a line, a double-spaced line at this bar. None sort of standing close enough for elbows to touch, and there is a second line starting to form behind them, because the bar's only wide enough for 6 people. But there's a break, sort of 3 men down the line from you. There's definitely a break in the spacing.
Okay. I will investigate the break in the spacing to see what's going on.
Okay, yeah. As you try to sort of squeeze past, as I say, this isn't a very big room. There's a table immediately behind you where you stood up that has a pile of sort of empty cups on it, which is where the people were making their frantic gestures while discussing something in an animated fashion. There's one man still sitting at the table, guarding the drinks that aren't quite finished, possibly finishing them himself. Finishing the last of the snacks someone else bought. And he sort of looks at you warily. Clearly doesn't trust these outsiders. And he seems to be searching you for something, like some visible mark or something. He doesn't appear to have found what he's looking for, but he's definitely sort of examining you. And as you step past his table, you place sort of an elbow in someone's back, sort of gently, sort of give them the hint you want them to stand a little closer than they want to the guy in front of them. You jostle someone and they grumble. And as you pass you've passed the first person, you get to the second, and well, how do you want to get past this guy? This guy is probably one of the largest people in the room. He's uniformly large, as opposed to Clive, who was deformed, quite obviously.
With this guy being considerably larger than Zeke himself, I think Zeke would sort of try and press himself as close to the table and squeeze past in that awkward fashion of, I'm really trying not to touch you, but it might happen.
Okay. Let's address this with the Fight Club conundrum. Do you give him the ass or the crotch?
The ass.
You give him the ass. Good choice. Yeah. Screw it. Let's see what happens there. Aww. Okay. Yeah. The guy doesn't seem entirely happy that someone sort of nudged him. He's holding a tray that the man in front of him is piling drinks onto, and you nudge him, and the beer spills a bit and goes down the neck of one of the other men at the bar. Yeah, and there's sort of a, what's what you bloody doing? Wasn't me, it was him. You know, bloody strangers coming into our pub and spilling our pints. Oh, they'll be here for the women next. They'll be here for the boys. They'll take all the food. Take them out, throw them out, lynch them. You've got a bit of a talent for this. At which point, the man behind the bar, he finally lets go of what you presume is his wife or partner, and stands on the bar. He still doesn't reach the ceiling. He's quite a short fellow. He stands at the bar. He's like, "Now, no need for all that. You calm down there. We won't have any fighting here." Some men grumble a bit. Fucking strangers. Drinking our beer. Spilling our beer. Bastards. And you receive sort of a soft jab to the ribs from someone in the crowd. There's someone just in this sort of crowd of like wet people half covered in beer that are grumbling. As you're passing, someone gives you a light jab in the ribs, but they're hiding in the group. You're not entirely sure who it was. It's just an arm that emerges from a group and sort of nudges you gently. They don't quite have the reach to connect a decent hit, so it's more just sort of it's almost like a bro fist. It's like, what the fuck was that? Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, you reach this gap in the line, and upon the floor, with an enormous idiot smile, and one eye rolled into the back of her head, is Anita. The other eye is just staring directly ahead, with a pupil almost the size of her face.
At this point, is she still holding the bottle of unknown?
Yeah. Oh yeah. She may still, in fact, be holding the bottle of unknown near her face.
As I sort of kneel down, is there any way I can make a guesstimate as to what this is?
Yeah. Well, justify something to me. What do you think it should? What do you think you should be trying?
Having wandered from the far north down, I think I would have come into contact with a fair few pubs, so maybe I've come across it before and know what this is, so knowledge.
Okay, you're going with the assumption that this is actually a drink. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Going with the assumption this is a drink you would be served in a pub. It seems like a safe assumption.
Nine on the dice, 11 total.
It smells a little like something that someone cleaned the bar with at a pub you went to.
Okay.
Not exactly like it, but similar. You know, in your mind, if something smells like this, you probably wouldn't drink it. You might clean a gun with it.
Okay.
Throw it at someone you didn't like.
I will try and return Anita to her feet. Keeping arm's length from the bottle lest it splash on me.
Okay. So yeah, Anita, you are you laying on the floor, beholding the glory and joy of the ceiling. The roof beams seem to be smiling at you. The crowd, although we know for a fact that they are angry and jeering and calling for you to be lynched, they appear to be doing so in a cheerful manner, almost joshing. It's almost tuneful. Everything down here seems so nice and calm, and the floor is comfortingly cool.
She starts stroking the floor. It's so
With one hand, I like the floor. Okay. Yeah. You stroke the floor for it. You get a rather nasty splinter, but in a way it adds to the whole sort of melange of the experience. You know, that little bit of bittersweet. It just makes it that little bit better. And you raise your hand in front of your one functioning eye, and the splinter looks lovely. It looks wonderful. It's going in at such a lovely angle. That little drop of blood. It's almost art. And you smile your idiot smile at your hand before you lose the strength in your arm and it drops back to the floor. At which point, Zeke's face emerges from the bright light that seems to be emanating from everything. Zeke isn't smiling. Zeke doesn't seem cheerful. Somehow, he almost looks a bit worried. Maybe even sad.
I think she's going to reach up and try and stroke his face and say, it's all good. Don't worry, it's all good.
Excellent. So yeah, see, you're reaching out to pick Anita up, and she reaches back up to you. Yeah. As you sort of you grasp her around like the biceps to sort of pull her from the floor, because obviously if you reach too far down, you'll never be able to stand back up again. You're cold and tired, and you've been walking for too goddamn long. Without a decent drink. You pull her up, and as you do, she attempts to stroke your face, which results in you getting a rather nasty splinter. But your experience with splinters, you sort of contort your face in just such a way that you learnt after falling flat on your face in a pub once, and the splinter just pops out. Because apparently Zeke is the master of splinters. You get Anita back to her feet. She won't be staying there unsupported. At least not quickly.
Okay. What sort of time are we talking about outside right now?
It's probably getting dark, starting to.
Okay.
You've probably got another sort of hour and a half, 2 hours of daylight. Dusk sort of.
Would I know of anything possibly further down the road, or is Ooze Town the next thing along?
Well, you're not entirely sure where Ooze Town is, but you're on a road. You've heard it's on the road south. It's on a road sort of south from Lewis. So you're following a road that is south from Lewis. You've heard it's the other side of a hill. It's next to a hill. And are you leaving the pub?
I'm trying to decide whether or not I should leave or see whether or not they have floor space for the night.
Okay, well, as you're standing there sort of eyeing up your options, I will remind you there are some lovely windows here. You notice that further off to the south, sort of, and only you're looking to the southwest. You're looking towards the southeast, which means that you're looking into the darkest portion of the sky. But you do notice that to the south there is a very large hill.
Okay. Sort of go, well, that's enough of that for you, and try and relieve Anita of the bottle.
She's not gonna let go.
Okay, that's gonna be a contested grapple then.
She's gonna keep hold of that bottle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. Oh god. So
that is 11 on the die.
Yeah, so you're smash-brained, moon-eyed, just humiliatingly twats you in the face with the half-empty bottle. You know, and it's a plastic bottle, so it bends, but it hits you on the nose, and it's sort of, in that jarring way when someone bops you on the nose with something. It's a little surprising and more than a little embarrassing, and it sort of gives you a few moments pause as when you get hit on the nose with any particular force, your brain takes a few moments to process what the hell's going on. You've just been hit in the head, and you've watched it the whole time, Yeah, you stand there, what the fuck's going on here? I thought I was stronger than Anita. And she pulls the bottle away. So yes, Anita is standing. You're standing. Okay. So you're going to cradle the bottle? Are you going to reseal the bottle? Oh god, do you even have the lid still? Is it somewhere?
She's gonna kind of look around for the lid because she hasn't got it.
Okay. Well, judging from the tiny little sealing ring on the top of the bottle, the lid is bright orange. Looking around amongst the feet of all of the men who are standing by this bar, trying to get their drinks in, you don't see any bright orange, but their shoes are lovely. And furthermore, as you're standing here, head lolling around, smiling, these men are all starting to warm up to you. You seem to be a great laugh. You notice that most of these men have these wide collars on. And, you noticed, you've already, between you, noticed they have thin hair at the back. It looks like it's growing back in. But yeah, they all have these thick collars on. Or they have neckerchiefs on, covering their necks. Things like that. Or high collars. But, as you're late, well, what is he going to do? You've got this sort of lolling, noodle-boned woman on her feet. She's just kung fu'd a bottle into your face somehow, through a grapple.
I think signing resigned to the fact that I won't get it away.
Okay.
Head back past Clive and out the front door.
Okay, yeah. Clive gets the message. He's seen someone noodling out all over the place, and he reaches over and pulls the door back out of its spot and slides it in. He just slides it back in behind his stool now that he's sitting on. Someone comes over and hands him another pint. It seems this is his job. He's just paid in beer. And yeah, he says, you get the impression he's trying to say something, but he's just in no fit state. Apparently, these people either entered the pub one by one, and he was paid in a beer for each, or he's just been here a long time. But yeah, he closes the door behind you as you step out.
before we step out, Anita wants to kind of reach out to him and go, what's Collis, why? Making her sense because she's completely out there, but she tries to ask the question.
As you do point at the collar and you ask, I'm not sure if did I do a voice for Clive earlier?
We've not heard Clive so far.
Okay, that's even cooler. I thought I'd done a voice for Clive. It's probably going to turn up later when I'm editing this that I have. But yeah, he opens his mouth and you can see the end of his tongue has been cut off and sewn up, and he just points at it. No. All the other men in the pub look decidedly uncomfortable. Yeah. The door starts closing before you step out. You're ushered out now. Yes, you've stopped at a pub for one drink. Congratulations! Unlike everyone else ever in the history of Britain, you've been on a journey and you've stopped at a pub for one drink. And you have stuck to it. So yes.
In the manner that you do when you have that friend that's had too much to drink, and you take them to walk it off.
Okay.
They start to head down towards this hill in the southwest.
Well, as you step outside and turn right to go south towards this hill, this hill is a continuous band of a continuous sort of ridge to the south. Is a very large ridge to the south. It looks quite gradual, but it goes quite high. It dominates the entire southern horizon from where you're standing. But yeah, popping over that hill. I mean, it'll take an hour or so, but hopping on over that hill will get you where you think you want to go. So
yeah,
might as well.
I will walk the less than able Anita down the road and towards these hills.
Okay. Later, the fresh air and the percussive action of your legs sort of, having to act as you're dragged along this road, or you're sort of half dragged along this road. I'm not sure if Zeke's large enough to actually carry you. So, and he hasn't tried to. I don't know, because there's been no tests to do so. So you've just been helped. But this, the jarring and then the fresh air, give you an endurance poison again.
What's it got? 12. Non-natural.
Yeah, you're... Much to your annoyance, you've left the pub. And things aren't so wonderful anymore. It's dark and it's a bit cold, and as you're led down this shitey little lane in the dark, things just gradually seem less wonderful. Until you pass the last of the little cottages on the left, and you come to an old stye. Old style that's fallen over, taking whatever fence was left with it, so you can just step over it. And as you do so, and you follow this lane as it becomes a path, just into brambles. They've been parted, so obviously people come through here. Everything just starts to feel crap, really crap. You just genuinely start to feel terrible. It's almost like normal. You feel a little sick and far too hot. But nothing Nothing a little evacuation wouldn't solve. Yes. At which, give me an endurance physical.
9.
9. Yeah, you start to have those unnerving sort of drunken hiccups. There's sort of half a hiccup and a hiccup immediately followed by a burp. A burp immediately followed by sort of a horrible sour taste and a feeling of chunks. You're fairly sure you can probably keep it down. Yeah. But your considered opinion is that it might be best not to.
She is going to kind of try and push Zeke away and go, yeah, I don't feel well. I'm gonna throw up. And then she just sits over the road and throw up.
Yeah. You manage a step away from Zeke. You found a little place where it's got a little stump for you to lean on. It'd be the perfect place for a casual vomit out that. A few minutes from the pub. It might even have been made for that very purpose. This might be the vomiting stump. The edges of this stump have been worn with fingers. As people lean on it and just throw up out into a little ditch. Little like channel that's been cut. Down to possibly a small stream. And yeah, you reach this. Yeah, you reach the stump and you vom on it. Onto the stump, over your boots. Zeke takes a. Screw it. No, you don't take a reflex. You get splattered. Tiny little specks. You know it happened. You just feel like an almost vapor-like tingle on the back of one of your hands. The hand that you were helping her with. It's nothing extreme, but you know it's there.
Could be worse, I suppose. It could be river mud, I guess.
Yeah, that it could. Yeah, and the vom hits the top of the stump and sprays in all directions. And it hasn't got a great amount of velocity to it, but there's a certain level of volume. And it goes on a little longer than you're probably comfortable with. But yeah, you feel a lot better. Yeah, you feel like you've just thrown up in a forest, but you feel better. You no longer feel like you might have been poisoned by someone who didn't like strangers, or possibly just someone who's mildly insane. But yes, you have a quarter bottle of something absolutely horrible that made you feel great for a little while, but you may in fact now be less intelligent. More prone to falling over and vomiting in woods. So yeah, you are. I seem to have not noticed that my camera has been misaligned this entire time. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, you're standing in a forest, your boots covered in vom, and there is a hill before you. The light is sort of starting to dim. So I assume you're going to head on, make some headway up the hill.
Yeah.
Beeline it for over the hill.
Okay.
That's worked out for me in past.
Yes. You make a beeline for it over the hill.
Does it need to recognise the route at all?
No. This isn't a route you've taken before. It's definitely not at night. Anita tends to stick to the larger roads, or where the larger roads were. Not necessarily on them, but near them. Crossing hills over land is, it's not a habit you ever got into. But it could work. This could be the shortcut you've been waiting for 134 years. Who knows? Yeah. You follow Zeke. Zeke is definitely better at this than you. He's striding forth, with the that the loping gait of an experienced walker. He's just eating up the distance, storming on up this hill, up this like narrow pathway. It seems to be getting chalkier as you get higher. And as you follow this path, it starts to actually sort of, as it starts climbing sort of higher, gradually the slope gets steeper, and the path veers off further to the left to make it a more gradual walk up. And much against Zeke's wishes, it eventually comes to a chalk pit.
I can tell you the best way around these is around and not through.
Yeah. When you come to the chalk pit, you're actually above it on the slope. Down and you can look down to your left and see the chalk pit. Yes. I mentioned this is not the chalk pit you're more closely associated with. This is a separate chalk pit because apparently someone needed a lot of chalk. But yeah. So yeah, you pass a very, very large chalk pit. And eventually you crest the hill just as the sun is going down on the horizon. You crest the hill, and you can see, weirdly, because that's not what you were told to expect in Ooze Town, can't see a river. Which, considering you were heading for a port, is not a great sign. What you can see is a lot of buildings. There are buildings dominating your entire southern horizon.
Okay.
You can see the sea, but no rivers. Off to the right of your sort of city, your southern horizon at the sea, you can see some very large buildings and a pall of black smoke rising from a sort of a very misty city off on the far horizon. And from this city, this misty city with this huge pall of black smoke rising from it, in the location that may or may not once have been a hospital, you see just a continuous stretch of buildings. They get smaller as they get further away from this larger cluster. They get sparser and sparser until eventually it's just sort of bungalows. Endless processions of bungalows. But there are radio masts every so often, but this isn't where you were expecting to be. So, how are you going to fix this issue?
Does he need to recognise this tool?
Give me a knowledge. 10. You definitely recognise the larger settlement off to the right. The larger settlement off to the right is definitely Blight Town. You can see the eponymous Blight, spreading out on the horizon like a large sort of dirty grey blanket. The black pall of smoke rising from it is new, but you definitely know what the fog means. You reckon this is the area known as the Spill, where it's literally just a huge spread of buildings that just spill out from the side of Blighttown. They don't have any other name but the Spill. They're not really claimed by anyone. There are no notable settlements here. You know, people pass through. Things to steal, things to raid, things to salvage. It's a good route between Blighttown and Oozetown. You know you're on the route somewhere. This is a route you've used in the past. But you couldn't say exactly where on it you are, really.
Anita's going to relay all of this to Zeke. And just mention that we may have gone wrong somewhere, but we can still get where we're going.
I suppose it's getting dark. We should try and find somewhere to crash out the weather for the night, and then set off back again in the morning.
It definitely sounds like a good idea.
So yeah. So you know that the buildings closer to Blighttown will probably be more intact, because the blight spreads out and periodically kills anyone who tries to settle there. As you get further from Blighttown, you'd probably be... From what Anita has told you, you'd probably end up being closer to Oozetown in the morning, but you're more likely to come across people who may or may not be pleasant. No. The spill isn't policed or patrolled in any way.
I'd sort of head to that middle ground where I'm less likely to run into people and less likely to be poisoned.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. So you Yeah. Fuck it. Why not? You Much. I'm not sure how Anita's going to respond to this, but yeah. You raise your hand. You point at a point on the horizon with your middle finger, and then you put up the fingers either side, and you sort of go there. And you point towards you point towards a large sort of blocky looking building that you can see on the horizon. It's got a few stories. It's a little taller than the others around it. You know, it looks like as good a place as any. If it's still standing, it's probably sturdy. So you head off towards that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you
know what you're doing.
Hmm?
I'm going to assume that Zeke knows what he's doing.
Fair enough. So yeah, you trek on down as the sun is going down. It takes a fair while. The sun's probably been down for about an hour by the time you actually reach the buildings. It was a bit deceptive in the low light, but there was actually a small valley and then another rise to these buildings. But yeah, you eventually arrive at the very back of this settlement. It's it's narrow roads of these horrible little single story buildings that sprawl a bit. There doesn't seem to be any sort of rhyme or reason to them. They're very, very vastly different sizes and slightly different orientations from the path. And as you're wondering, Anita, you realise that they're not numbered consistently. Just as one of those little details that people notice in passing. You notice numbers because you can read them. As you wander down, you pass 74, and then 6, and then 12, and then 8. And you're like, oh, that's good. We're starting to get in something reasonable. Then you pass 70, and it all just goes out the window. After you pass up the first intersection here, you stop paying attention to the numbers. It was an interesting little curiosity as you started walking down, but the illogic of it is irritating, to say the least. And give me a perception as you guys wander in. What else do you notice?
I rolled a 2, bringing my total to 5.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's my perception. 11.
Okay.
Not on
Yeah.
the die. 11
Yeah.
total.
Yeah. As you wander down, you pretty much realise very soon that that these roads all head sort of straight south. There's no deviation on these roads. They all just head straight north to south, sort of thing. Down towards the sea, down towards a cliff. You assume, because it doesn't seem to be any sort of gradual tapering, and you've walked up a hill and doesn't appear to be any down. So yeah, you keep heading downwards, and that's all that Zeke has noticed. And it's, yeah, at least this bit will be easy. Anita notices as they're walking down that she can't see the building that you're supposedly heading towards. You might have deviated slightly. You're probably somewhere near it, but you don't seem to be where you intended to go. Also, you smell smoke from somewhere. You don't see any light yet, but you can smell smoke.
Anita's going to just reach out and tap Zeke and go, building's gone. I can smell smoke. Something's not quite right here.
You sure? I can't smell anything.
No, it's definitely smoke. I know smoke when I smell it, but it's definitely smoke.
Alright then. I'm going to have a look around to see if there's anywhere that looks suitable to crash in. Suitable uninhabited to crash in for the night.
Go on then. Well, are you looking for this place with an eye to hiding?
Yes.
Or like, are you more generally just trying to find a place that looks sturdy?
Somewhere that people wouldn't necessarily go, someone might sleep in there, but also somewhere that isn't going to collapse as soon as I sort of touch the front door.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, give me a perception. You can add your sneak to it, because you're trying to be sneaky. Or you're trying to look for a place to hide.
9 on the dice, plus sneak of 5. So 14.
14. Yeah, as you're wandering down this road, you get a really good feeling about turning right at the next intersection, and as you do, you find a small break in the buildings where there's a small expanse of sort of scrubby grass encircled by a metal fence that it's all made of sort of these chunky pipes, and the fence has a big gate in it. It doesn't appear to have a lock of any kind. It's only probably about 4 feet high, 3.5, 4 feet. And within this little field of mud and sort of scrubby grass, there's a sort of a small structure. It stands about 7 feet, 8 feet high in places. There's usually lots of sort of pipe work around it. And there's some chains hanging off of some parts of it as well, which is odd to say the least. It doesn't appear to be a place where someone lived, but It has walls and a floor, and it's raised a little off the ground.
Seems a reasonable enough place to spend the night. So
Yeah, you know, as it's raised off the ground, animals won't be wandering in. You know, it's got a roof and walls, and the most of it seems to be made of metal.
okay. Can I send Jerry in there to sort of scout out the insides and sort of say, is there anyone in there?
Yeah, I would say so. So yeah, I'm gonna send Jerry on in. Woohoo! Yeah, Jerry scuttles on in, and you stand there for a little while, waiting for him to come back. And you can hear snuffling, and you can hear his normal sort of, barking, gnashing sounds. And you hear something running away in the grass. And he much like a yes, Hugo. The dice are loud. I rolled them specially in a wooden bowl. Yes, he comes back with the air of like a very self-satisfied house cat. I'd like to say that you could see he's splattered with blood, but he's a red squirrel and it's at night, so you notice that he's there. But he saunters out through the long grass, looking very smug.
I'll give him a pat on the less bitey of the heads.
Okay. Yeah, the less bitey head, accepts the pat, as it always does. It's a little spaced out. Its eyes aren't necessarily looking in the correct directions. But yeah, it's the chilled out head. So it's getting on with things. And
then
he climbs up your arm and sort of he sits on your shoulder. And he says, "Nah."
Okay, that's good enough for me. I'll head on in.
Yeah. And so you walk across this little field, and you step into this. You climb into this structure. It's only a couple of feet off the ground, but it's a little snug. Not gonna lie. The little doorway to it is definitely not designed for a large person to move through. I mean, you're not a large person, but you are taller than, say, a child, which may or may not be what this adventure playground was designed for. As you bed down in the little castle on a climbing frame in a children's adventure park. But yeah, there's easily room for both of you, and on the other end of this building there is an entrance on one side that you've come through that at one point had rungs down to the ground for children, and there's another one that goes out onto a climbing frame and monkey bars and has some swings at the other end. On the little landing out to that, there is some manner of bloody mess. There's a creature that was apparently sort of the length of a forearm and had fur. That's all you can really tell. It's still warm. Maybe you accidentally touch it without realising it was there. Once. Just the once. But fortunately the floor has little drain holes in it. So, the little puddle that it's laying in doesn't spread into the castle you're sitting in. And yes, you're going to camp for the night in a small, cheaply panelled castle on a children's playground.
That is the long and short of it.
Excellent. Now, I know that technically we have half an hour left, and I know that technically I said that we probably would get some combat in on this one, but this is a lovely point to leave it. As you spend the night in an adventure playground somewhere in the Telscombe Cliffs area. So, oh, so I think we will. I think that that will be it. So yes, that was Rotten near Ooze Town. You discovered a little enclave of escaped slaves, and never asked why.
I tried to ask why.
Well, you did. Well, you never asked. You, the players, know what those slave things mean. You, the characters, may have seen them before, but you didn't feel like testing knowledge or asking me. So, fair enough.
I picked the wrong patron to ask.
You did. I'm almost entirely sure that guy did have a voice earlier. But oh well. Anyway, yeah. So, that was Rotten near Ooze Town. You guys slept in an adventure playground. I was thirsty. You can find me on Twitter at thirsty_BTP. Find me on bloodthirstypuppets.co.uk. You can find me here on Mondays and normally Fridays, but there's been a bit of a hiccup on those recently. So, you two, where can we find you? Who are you people?
I've been Ivor playing Zeke. Find me on Twitter at Ivor_DNABC. Here on a Monday night and in the nebulous north.
Yes, I was playing Anita. You can find me on Twitter at NUKED. Here on a Monday night, and on a Saturday night, you can find me on Kit Edward's Twitch channel playing some D&D.
Excellent. So yeah, that was our little, improvised fill-in game. Entirely improvised. I didn't have anything written, and I invented a settlement full of people we made up. Almost a Hello from the Magic Tavern sort of moment of what to show you. That was entirely fake. But yeah, that's that. Thank you, those of you who tuned in, and thank you also those of you who later look us up on YouTube. So, cheerio, guys. We shall go to the outro card. Look how pretty it is. Huzzah. Oh. Well. That was a ham-fisted double sandwich of improvisation. Oh. With all of sort of an hour and 40 minutes prep. Which I spent editing 2 simple pieces of graphics. Oh. Yeah, thanks guys for sticking with me through that.
It was fun.
Yeah. I wish I'd got... I had half designed a combat encounter in my head, but then you decided to go to sleep in an adventure playground, and it just seemed so wonderful. But I didn't necessarily want you to be like burned out in the morning, and you have to flee from a large combat encounter. So we shall have to wait for the main timeline to resume for a combat encounter. But
I'm
hey,
impressed that we're like 5 episodes. There's 5 or 6.
I think the next one technically will be 5. We've done 6, but the next episode will be the main timeline hitting episode 5.
Yeah. So that's 6 6 sessions where we have had a grand total of 1 shot fired and 1 guy run through with a post.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there you are. Low violence post-apocalyptics. That's never what we intended. What kind of rubbish is this? I'll have to pull my finger out. Anyway, yeah. Oh. That was that. We are out.